All right, we're back live. We've hit a part two. Usual tech bullshit going on over here. Benny, I don't even know where we're up to actually. To be honest, we're finishing off some vol and stuff, I think, but we also need
Yeah,
to
I
talk
think.
about. I think we also need to move on to Austin Faulkner's knee. That wasn't pretty either. He didn't make it through the season. For someone who got so close to almost making every round of a season, Austin Faulkner fell one round, well, 1.5 rounds short.
Yeah, and that's the last thing you need. I heard somewhere the other day, I can't recall where it was, but I did hear him say, might have been a video or a podcast or something, that he's finally made every round this year, and then this happens.
He's
Probably went a
might
bit
have
too early. Probably
just
went a
jinxed
bit too
himself.
early on that. Yeah,
Yeah, just a touch,
but
but
yeah,
yeah, look, it's not cool. We don't want to see that from anybody, particularly someone with the history that he's had with injuries. But yeah, look, when you dab the knee, and look, I don't know what exactly he did to get to that point, but he definitely tucked the front real fast and had to dab that knee. So whether he just got too much front brake and on that sort of slick surface, just push the front. But anyway, he's dabbed the leg. The knee's going to take all that load, whether it's an ACL, whether it's meniscus, whether it's MCL, whether it's all three. We'll find out here shortly. He's usually pretty emotional with his posts when they do come up. So let's see what happens this time around. Hopefully, it's not as bad as we think it might be. But yeah, 1.5 rounds short of a full season, unfortunately, for Austin Faulkner. Now, while we're running and we're streaming live, let's make sure we cover our Boost Mobile Australian Supercross Championship stuff that's coming up here. Let's talk Shark Park first and foremost. Benny, I sent you the link, so I know you've seen it, but we haven't potentially. We were meant to talk about this last week when the stream didn't work last week. But there's a Daily Telegraph article going around about the condition that Shark Park is currently in terms of its facilities, stating things like temporary fencing are in place, bathrooms aren't functioning, and they've got portaloos as the main source of bathrooms at the venue. We maybe get this at a cheaper rate than maybe we should have. Is this maybe the state of the stadium is not in a good situation, but we've managed to sign on for Cronulla Park for our Sydney version or Sydney round of the Australian Supercross Championship. I'm just a little bit concerned that we're going to have a stadium that isn't actually, you know, fully functioning. Let's say it's a bit of a worry, to be honest. Now we've lost Benny in the background. He knows what we're talking about, so when he pops back in here in a sec, we're going to be good to go. And he's just about to show up now. So let's make sure he's back on the stream. Here he is. Dropped out, come back. Shark Park. Is it in as good a state as it could be? Did we get it maybe at a cheaper rate?
yeah, I'm not sure. They said that the NRL people are saying that it probably wasn't fit to host the final. Again, probably not a good look if that's what we're going to turn up to. But it's I haven't been there, but when people are in the paper and they know what's going on, it's not a good look.
Yeah, look, obviously there's still a bit of time between now and when that round is at the end of October. So maybe there'll be plenty of works done before that. But yeah, just coincidental that we just sort of only announced it a couple of weeks earlier, and then yeah, that Daily Telegraph article pops up about it being in a little bit of a bad situation, operation wise. So anyway, I thought it was worth raising. Like I said, maybe we got a good deal on it, so we'll see how it plays out.
Oh, it can't be too bad because the Sharks did win the final that got played there. So hey, it may not be too bad.
Yeah, look, maybe just Reece Walsh can't get his recovery water from the bathrooms.
Yeah, I wouldn't be going to the Portaloos and getting any water out of those.
I was wondering where you're going to go. You sort of paused for a second there. Yeah, I wouldn't get anything out of a Portaloo. Um, KDM Australia announced last week their team for the upcoming Supercross series. There was a bit of a surprise signing for probably many people. Dylan Walsh, the Great Britain rider, has been announced. He's Britain and he's New Zealand. Which one is he?
Oh,
I think I've just
not.
double crossed myself here on something, and I'm going
Uh,
to look
uh,
like a bit of a goose. Somebody's going to correct me here shortly. Anyway, Dylan Walsh is on the team for KTM Australia. He's going to be riding with Nathan Crawford in the 450 class. They've got Noel Ferguson and Byron Dennis in the 250s. But yeah, interesting signing bringing Dylan Walsh over.
Yeah, it is, and it's depends on who you ask. It's good to see another team sign a rider from overseas instead of just the one that we usually have. But it'd be interesting to see how he goes.
Yeah, I'm not picking him as being championship contender, but he's got to be in that top five, you would think.
Yeah, I would think so. It's probably all new to him, I suppose. In a way, he's got to gel with the team and sort of get used to the environment over here. But yeah, you would expect him at least top five.
Yeah, you mentioned too before about like depending on who you talk to, the signing from another overseas rider being good or bad. There's been a fair bit of unsettled Australian-based riders commenting on some of these international rider signings in the last few weeks and things about money getting thrown around and that the Australian riders aren't getting any. I can see their point. Like, look after the homegrown talent first, then if there's space, let's go international, not international first, then homegrown. It's like we're going to have nobody to do these things if we don't support our own.
Yeah, and you don't blame them.
Riders is going to make a good point, maybe. You never know with Benny, with the contractor. But yeah, it's difficult. The Australian riders aren't stoked on the situation with some of these internationals coming in. But Benny's about to join back here. Hold on, here he comes. You're about to make a good point. Don't don't
I think
don't don't disappoint me.
I think we're going to have to give the Starlink some recovery water. Jesus.
Yes.
Um, I think, I don't blame them. They've only, our Australian riders have only got a certain amount of time on the bike, career wise, just the same as, the American blokes do or wherever they come from. But, I don't blame them for being a little bit annoyed when, say the likes of Clout or Tanti, could possibly have a championship, but because we've had international riders here, it hasn't happened.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting situation that we found ourselves in recently, and this kind of goes to then the next 2 points I'm going to make here. Australian privateer Dylan Wills, very well known, was the man that gave it to Vince Freeze in World Supercross a couple of years ago. Um, Rode really well in the last few years of Australian Supercross. Didn't essentially have a ride and announced on his socials a couple of weeks ago that he was not going to do the Australian Supercross Championship because all these other rides were going to some of these internationals. Luckily for Dylan, Yamaha Australia has stepped up for him and given him some support that's going to allow him to do the championship on a privateer Yamaha 450. So, look, good for Dylan to be a part of the series, but kind of validates what we're just talking about here that, the Aussies that could do it couldn't get the support they needed to do it properly.
Yeah, and Wills is really good with his activations and the fans, as we've seen. The few years ago at Newcastle and at Marvel, he had the the motorbike in Hot Wheels box and all that sort
Very
of
cool.
stuff. But it's where you sort of sit on the fence. It's really cool to see American riders come over that if they didn't, and a lot of people don't get the chance to go overseas, you would never see them. But on the other side of that is how the Australian riders feel.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's an interesting situation, and then to follow on from that, um, it hasn't been announced in our media officially, or from the team, or from Yamaha Australia or CDR, but not this week, but the previous week's Pulp show when Phil Nicoletti was in studio. He has been on that. He was on that show saying that he has signed with CDR Yamaha for the entire Australian Boost Mobile Australian Supercross Championship to do the 450 class. So that's an interesting rider signing to have come down. I don't know if he's retired, semi-retired, back full time, what the situation is, but look, Phil Nicoletti is cool to have here. Um, he's filled that void for Daka that he alluded to in my podcast when I did the Yamaha intro. Now, if you haven't listened to that, you should go and check that out on the Spotify's or the Apple podcast situations. But he wasn't happy about the negotiations that he was trying to go through with another American rider. He's managed to default down to Phil Nicoletti.
Yeah, and I think with the fans, that's probably one person that they won't complain about if
I
they
think they'll all be
if they
happy.
are if they are on the fence. Phil's a good guy. Everyone loves him. He gets plenty of exposure throughout pulp and whatnot. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see Supercross on the 450.
Look, I think he'll do well. I'm just curious if he's like Dean Wilson's speed. He'll be Dean Wilson better than Dean Wilson fitness wise because he doesn't have the old man Grandpa Earl knees of Dean Wilson. And Dean Wilson, speaking of, has some issues going through Super Motocross at present. So, and I don't know how well that's going to recover in time for our series that he's down with Reeve for. But yeah, Phil could be a contender, but he's going to be on that same sort of level as Tanti and Clout and even Crawford. I would pick him as above Walsh, who we just talked about with KTM Australia. Yeah, uh, that could be the run with Dino there. So yeah, we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, I can see it being a good championship. I could see there being multiple race winners, really close right to the end. I don't just see one sort of pull away guy, like Savachi last year.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen. I think the situation for Dino that he's in currently physically will actually bring him into that group, back into that group, and make it more of a battle. So yeah, this could be a good season. Could be a really good season, and we're going to be a part of it. We're going to be there covering stuff, so that'll be cool as well. So, all right. Any closing thoughts before we head over to our interview and see if I can break the stream again with a pre-recorded interview for Ryder Malinowski?
No, just everyone make sure you drink your recovery water.
Maybe we should get like a couple of branded bottles ready to go for Red Cliffs to hand him one. Recovery water. Listen to the AlwaysMoto podcast,
Yeah, I must say though, even though the bad stuff that has happened, he is a good player, and he does change the game and can change the games, but it just doesn't help with our you know
The
with our
extracurriculars
look.
haven't helped. Yeah.
Yeah,
Look, yeah, you don't know these things when you make the decisions to try and bring somebody on as an ambassador. You can't judge what they're going to do after that point and potentially harm things. But yeah, look, he's had a bit of unwanted media attention in recent times, and most of it's been brought on by himself. So hopefully he learns from it. He does seem like he's a moto guy, but because he did actually have a bit of a ride or something, I think it was, or at least he was saying that he was able to do that when he was at that promo day for the Supercross series. So, look, let's see what happens when he gets there. Maybe he has a ride. Maybe everyone loves him. Maybe by that point, everyone's forgotten and they've already drunk all their recovery water.
it's possible.
It's possible. We'll see. We'll see. All right, Benny. Thanks for joining us, mate. We'll drop you off the line here, and then we will head to our recorded interview, and I'll see if I can break our live stream. Appreciate you being a part of it, Benny.
No worries, Dave.
All right, let's get to our pre-recorded interview. I'm going to see if I can make this happen here. So we're going to basically end the show at the end of this interview. Thanks, guys and girls, for watching and listening. If you've subscribed to this podcast, please do so now if you haven't already. If you don't know that this is on audio-only versions, it will be on Spotify and Apple Music and iHeartRadio. If you're listening to this on the podcast version, on those audio-only versions, guess what? We're on YouTube doing live stream on a Wednesday night, 7:45. We're going to try and make this, whether it's 7:45 or 7:30 or 8, somewhere in this range here on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night is when we're going to do these regularly throughout the Australian Supercross series. So hopefully come and check those out. Yeah, subscribe on both platforms. Tell your friends, share the links, support us. We've got these t-shirts available. Yes, I'm holding up my shirt for the audio listeners. They're the $25 plus postage and handling. You can get one. Email info@alwaysmoto.com and we can get you those shirts sent out. We're doing some beanie runs. They're going to be $20 plus postage. So yeah, look, I know it's not the right time of year coming up for beanies, but get one for next year. Anyway, we've got some merch here. We need some support of the show. We have a PayPal link that you can donate to us as well to keep some of this stuff going. Maybe you can help pay for some of their streaming services because F knows what's going on here with the dropouts that we continue to have, but I'm going to keep working on it. We've managed to get through the show pretty well this time around. Last week we couldn't even get on at all. Um, so yeah, let's get to our interview. Ryder Malinowski, winner on round 2 of the Super Motocross Next program in St. Louis, rides for Club MX. Thanks again to Ty Rayfield for hooking us up with this interview with Ryder. He set it up for me. It was much appreciated, Ty. Let's get it on. Very good. For sure. The total and yeah, 100%. You know, thing, and is you can finishing the race and triple. Team, even if you know, you know, from, you know, really knowing that, you know, and being, yeah, yeah, 18 years old. 18.
Yeah, because we said that you know, just a program. I don't know how to US card. I think just a program. So they are going to be we'll see. That's it. I guess we want to keep racing, keep racing. Before I do in the US, to protect for it. Possibly 2020. Yeah, that's a good podcast. You mentioned in the couple days ago. Yeah, because it's a super cross race, that's going to qualify to get your first time. It doesn't qualify to win any points for Supercross. So, races you have to do to points, 4 points or something. But the other day, so for Supercross, to go Supercross, to be yeah. So, yeah, I'm sure it's fine. I think the super work only in so here to follow and it, it makes you know just all for sure. Uh, three or four different fully trained. Well, yeah, we train. Yeah, and those something that you know, it's and they're still trying to just like me and you know, yeah, training doesn't understand to be, you know, his recent changes. So, just doing training. Yeah, that's a great thing where you yeah, just from years of so we're gonna yeah, sit down. So, yeah, no,
pro level. Obviously, I think in 2 to 3 years I could see myself competing for a championship, either in pro motocross or supercross. That's the goal. That's my high goal, obviously. But to, short term goals, just to keep building and keep getting better, because that's
just, you know,